July 13th to order. First, we have a roll call, please.
Good morning. Please let us know if you're in attendance. Councilwoman Mandy Campbell, District Deputy Commissioner Deitchley, Councilman Fish. Here. Commissioner Fleming.
Here.
Councilman Graham. Commissioner Groninger.
Here.
Councilwoman Groninger.
Here.
Councilwoman Hammond.
Here.
Councilman Hicksonbaugh.
Here.
Mayor Jenkins. District Deputy Commissioner Johnson. Mayor Mueller. Commissioner Overmeyer. Mayor Robertson. Councilman Root.
Here.
Mayor Center.
Yo.
Mayor Stutzman.
Here.
Mayor Talmer.
Present online.
Thank you. Commissioner Wyrick
Present.
and Mayor Wood.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum of members present.
Thank you. Next, I would entertain a motion on the minutes. Questions, comments on the minutes?
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. There is no chairman's report. Do we have a financial report?
We do. Good morning, everyone. First, we are going to look at, I believe you have a yellow sheet with a financial budget revision. So for contract services, we're proposing to increase that line item by $400,000 to up to $4,620,000. That is due to increased cost with our transit services. Once the fuel costs had increased the last several months, they have a provision in their contract that kicks in to help us aid them in the cost of fuel. So that's created more expenses than we had anticipated. So for telephone, we are increasing by $3,500 to $19,500. And that is due to the cost of our office phone bill has gone up the last 6 months and almost doubled in costs. And we are currently looking for a new plan so that we can cut that back down. We're asking for an increase of $10,000 in the materials and supplies line item, which will make that $38,000. We just have some money that we are trying to spend in an old grant that was materials and supplies for our tactical urbanism. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Supplies that we are loaning out to people. And we have some last minute things that we were trying to purchase there. And then all of that is going to come out of our equipment furniture line item. So that will go down $413,500, which will make that $836,500. And we have so much money remaining there because we weren't able to buy any vehicles this year. So plenty of money in that line item. So does anybody have any questions? Yes.
I hope you can hear me.
You might need to pass the mic.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is Dwight Fish. And do we have any red flags in this budget where such an increase in transit costs are going to slow down the process for budgeting? The government going to go hold on here a minute?
Yeah, I mean, contractual services has gone up significantly over the last year, due in part to trying to make sure that the contractor is providing competitive wages so that we have plenty of drivers. So we did do a one-time agreement on a one-time increase on the overall fee there. And then there is a provision, as Debbie pointed out, that when gasoline gets over a certain threshold, that we then start to participate in a kind of like a premium pay on the fuel, so that because the contractor assumes certain variables, right? And when that hits that threshold, then we pay an additional fee on the hourly rate. And so that's always been there. We've dealt with this before in 2008.
Probably,
2009.
yeah. And say, and this contract with Royal Excursion or Kaiser is a 5-year contract. So 5 years ago,
Right.
gas was
This
down.
is the end of a 5-year contract.
Yeah.
So we'll be rebidding the entire contract out this summer here soon. And so then that will be rebid, and then we'll be getting new prices. So it may mean that some of our budget assumptions for the next fiscal year were potentially low. But we've tried to factor those in. So
I'm just concerned that we're looking at such a volatile market. And I don't want government agencies, whether it be city, county, or MACOG, to be ripped off. I want our taxpayers to be well represented. Just trying to clear the air, because we're going into some of our building projects and all of a sudden it's 20% higher. And I don't want us to have to pay unnecessary penalties or get caught up and then.
yeah, this is a completely fair and agreed upon contractual item where we've had this for multiple decades, where there is usually a preset threshold of a dollar mark when fuel goes above that point and stays above that point.
And
that
I'm
we
thinking, was the amount like $3.50?
I
For
believe
some
so.
reason, that's like
Yeah.
popping in my head. It might not be accurate, but
I couldn't recall
I
off the
feel
top
like
of my head.
it's around that area where that's
So typically
where
it doesn't
this
get
extra
triggered.
Kicks in.
But historically, it has occasionally been triggered. And that's a pre-negotiated item that we're prepared for.
Yeah, I've just never dug down into the contract for
Sure.
transportation, but I appreciate the clarification.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Do you want to do the overall financial report, or is that,
I think you can approve this separately.
okay? So I would entertain a motion to approve the changes for the fiscal year.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Next, May.
Okay, moving on to the May financial report. Our year-to-date expenses through the month of May was $6,353,850.41. Our cash balance at the end of May was $2,983,000.
Tomorrow.
Sorry, $2,983,066.76. And our total disbursements for the month of May was $927,102.56. And that month was so high because we paid for the pictometry flyover, which was almost $400,000 there. Now, any questions about the May financial report? Hearing
Seeing no
none.
questions, I'd entertain a motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Do we have a secretary's report?
The June administrative modifications are included in the packet. The June modifications are essentially different small corrections, different changes that the board has provided staff with the authority to change between meetings. And so those are done and provided for your listing and informational purposes only. The public can also find those online as well.
We do not need approval on those, correct?
Correct. No approval is needed as they are presented for informational purposes only.
Great. Do you have any old business?
There is no old business today.
All right, what about new business?
There is new business.
Okay, Allison?
Good morning, everyone. So I'll be presenting our amendments to our transportation improvement program. Before I get into that, I did want to make a quick announcement. So if you have not heard, the state did approve their new transportation improvement program, so the STIP. So what this means for us is that we will no longer need to make updates to our 20 to 24 TIP. Our 22 to 26 TIP is now legally binding, so we will only be making updates to the 22 to 26 TIP. And kind of on the back end, the TIP that was incorporated into the STIP is from March. So this month, when we send NDOT our amendments and modifications, we will also be sending them a consolidated list of any actions that we've done since March, so they can update the STIP with everything that's been done to the TIP. So just wanted to make you aware of that. So we'll start with Transportation Resolution 18-22. Within this resolution, these are all NDOT-initiated projects. So we'll start with item A. This is on US 31 from 1.47 miles south of State Road 110 to 0.31 miles south of State Road 10. So this is on the kind of southern side of Argus. This is an access control project to accommodate new traffic patterns. And we will be adding in preliminary engineering, right-of-way, and construction. And you will note that the construction amount you see on your agenda is fairly low. This amount is just for utility work. Construction will actually happen in fiscal year 27. So you'll see that the estimated cost to complete is about 3.7 million total. Next, we have item B. This is an intersection improvement at State Road 120 and County Road 17 in Elkhart County. We'll be adding in preliminary engineering for this project. And the intent of this project is to help reduce congestion and crashes. The preferred alternative for this project is to convert the intersection to a hybrid quadrant intersection on the southwest corner. But other alternatives will be evaluated during the preliminary engineering phase. Next, we have item C. This is a bridge carrying State Road 15 over Whitehead Ditch in Elkhart County. This is a bridge replacement, and we are adding in preliminary engineering. Next, we have item D. This is at State Road 15 from 1.01 miles north of US 33 North Junction to US 20, so north of Goshen. This is an HMA overlay or a hot mixed asphalt overlay. So NDOT will be doing some paving work, and we are adding in preliminary engineering. Item E is at State Road 13 from 9.46 miles north of US 30 to 3.53 miles south of US 6. So essentially running from the southern side of Syracuse to north of North Webster. And again, this is another HMA overlay, a hot mixed asphalt overlay, and we are adding in preliminary engineering. And then finally, we have item F. This is NDOT's PEL, or Planning and Environmental Linkage Study for US 30 and 31. For US 30, NDOT will be looking from State Road 49 to the Ohio state line. And on US 31, they'll be looking from Tipton or the Hamilton County line to US 30, excluding State Road 931 junctions in Kokomo. So we've discussed this already, and this project is in our TIP, but NDOT now has more finalized numbers. So we'll be increasing federal funding by roughly 13.5 million. And again, this project is to help NDOT develop a game plan for projects along US 30 and 31. So I'll pause here and take any questions you might have.
David, Dwight?
So you could go back to item B,
Mhm.
the County Road 17, State Road 120. We're going to have any business disruption? Are we losing any business there? Could you kind of describe any physical changes to any of the business?
Yeah, there will not be any businesses affected. So from my understanding from their initial design is it'll just be on the southwest quadrant, a loop to connect the T. So it's a very minor change.
Could we talk after that, get a little more detail after?
Absolutely.
Any additional questions? Anybody want to accept?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next, we have Transit Resolution 1922.
So with Transit Resolution 1922, essentially what we're doing here is reconciling various line items within our TIP to ensure that Transpo has everything in place to apply for their upcoming FTA grant. So the first two items we have will be removing line items. So we have item A, which is a project for transit operating tire lease, and item B, which is a project for transit operating acquiring ADP hardware. So I will note that just because we are deleting these line items doesn't necessarily mean that Transpo will not be doing these projects. It just means that they don't need this money in this fiscal year. So what we tend to do with transit projects is put in generic line items several fiscal years in advance. And then once the fiscal year is coming to an end and it's time for Transpo to apply for their grant, we'll go back and actually update the line items and numbers with what they actually think will be needed. So again, that's what's happening here with this resolution. So our next three items, we have item C, which is transit operating acquiring ADP software. So we'll be increasing federal funding by $160,000. For item D, we have transit operating rehab and renovating facilities. We'll be increasing federal funding by $160,000. And for item E, we have transit operating assistance for fixed routes, and we'll be increasing federal funding by $213,000. And then finally, we have three line items that will be adding into the DIP. So we have item F, which is for transit operating miscellaneous support equipment. We have item G, which is for transit operating buying replacement greater than 35-foot buses. And then item H, which is for transit operating general development and comprehensive planning. So happy to answer any questions on Transit Resolution 1922.
Any questions?
Motion to approve.
So move. Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Next, we have the Unified Planning Work Program.
All right, good morning. Resolution 2022 is for three items that would be in the Unified Planning of Work program. So just as a reminder, last month, we approved the Unified Planning of Work program. These projects were listed in the Unified Planning of Work program. So the board has already approved these projects. We're just now that the board has approved them, adding them to the Transportation Improvement Program. So the first item, item A, is for pictometry. This is half of the cost of the flight because we break that up to make it into equal payments every year. So this is the first half of that flight cost. This is for all four counties. We have an agreement with the counties where we basically participate in those flights at a 70-30 cost share, and there is a significant cost savings to the region by flying together. Item B is for our Clean Air program. This program works with Drive Clean Indiana, as well as on informing the public about voluntary ways to reduce emissions. And so item B is for part of the program cost that we are pulling out of the South Bend urbanized area, as you'll see. And then in item C, it's the same program, the other half of the cost, but coming out of the Elkhart Goshen urbanized area, because we do have two urbanized areas with different pots of funds. And so that's essentially what we're doing here. So happy to answer any questions about Resolution 22 or 2022. But if there are no questions, I'd be asking for your approval today.
Motion to approve.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next, we have the fiscal year 2022, I don't know why I can't say that word,
FTA apportionment.
apportionment.
Yep.
Thank you.
No problem. All right. So our veteran board members will recall that each year we do an approval for the FTA, the Federal Transit Administration apportionment. So for folks that are new, essentially what happens is the Federal Transit Administration, when it does its allocation across the country for transit funding, it provides an allocation or an apportionment to an urban area. It does not do it to the direct recipient, right? So unlike, say, HUD, where when HUD does its allocation, there are certain communities, say like South Bend or Mishawaka or Goshen, Elkhart, where you get an allocation, right? You know your number. Instead, the FTA program, it apportions to the urban area, and then it's the responsibility of the MPO working with its transit providers to come up with a fair split of those funds. And so in the South Bend urbanized area, the transit providers are NICTID, which operates the South Shore, Transpo, and then Niles Dial-A-Ride. And because the urban area goes into Michigan, our partners at Southwest Michigan Plan Commission, our kind of sister agency up in Michigan, participates in this process. We essentially outline how much the overall apportionment is, and then we come up with multiple different scenarios to present to them on how we could divide up the funds. Then we get everybody around a table and we talk through it. And the transit providers have agreed to the apportionment as presented, which is the total apportionment is $5,556,143. You can see on the screen and in your packet the split for all of the transit providers. I'll do them in generalities here. For NICTID, they would receive 1.9 million. Transpo would receive 3.3 million, and Niles Dial-A-Ride would receive 300,000. The total urban area apportionment went up about 28% this year because of the new infrastructure bill. So it was definitely an easier conversation amongst the transit providers because everyone's numbers were going up. So you can see that that is for the base level of funding, which is called 5307, which is usually used for operating or capital. Then the next item is the rail what we call the rail apportionment. It's technically for 5337 funding, which is for state of good repair. And this can be used for either any sort of rail provider, or if any of our bus providers were doing bus rapid transit, as well as any rail services as well. So really the only eligible entity in our region is NICTID. And so as we have historically done, 100% of those funds are slated to go to NICTID. And then the last item, Resolution 2322 is what we call the bus apportionment. And this is for bus and bus facilities. This is a capital funding. It's from Section 5339. Folks use this for buying buses and rehabbing bus facilities or building bus facilities. And the total apportionment there is 308,704. Transpo and Niles meet to talk through what those needs are, and you can see those as presented. Transpo would receive $248,704, and Niles would receive $60,000. These are all agreed to by those transit providers through that kind of arbitration process that I described. But they are presented to this board for final approval. If there is a disagreement amongst this board on those, then we then have to get together with our partners up in Michigan and create a bi-state commission and hammer out those differences. We've historically never had to invoke that, but all of these are in agreement with everyone. So I would see no reason that we would need to do that. I can answer any questions about these resolutions.
All right, I would entertain a motion, seeing no questions, for approval.
So moved.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Oh, and can I clarify that the motion is for Resolution 21, 22, and 23?
Right, for all the.
Just so that we can have that for the minutes.
That word that I can't say.
Apportionment.
Apportionment. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Staff updates, please.
Good morning, everyone. Today, I just have two, exciting grant opportunities to talk you through. So the first is the T-Mobile Hometown Revitalization Grant.
Applications open July 1st and they'll close September 30th. This grant is open to all cities and towns that have a population of less than 50,000 persons, and you can request up to $50,000. This one is particularly exciting because applicable projects are very broad. So we have seen communities funded for projects like creating public Wi-Fi networks in parks or fixing up a community pool or something like that. So if you or any of your communities would be interested in $50,000 to do a project, this is a really exciting grant that has a relatively easy application process. I did list my email right below my name if anyone would like to reach out or if you have any questions about that, or I'm happy to take any questions right now. Alrighty. So the next update is about the CDBG planning grant applications. So those did open back up and applications are being accepted until August 12th. I'm going to go ahead and read out the types of plans that this grant will fund this round. So water utility infrastructure plans, comprehensive plans, economic recovery plans, broadband plans, public facilities plans, economic development plans, environmental assessment plans, and historic preservation plans. This one is a little more tailored. So to qualify for this grant, among other considerations, communities need to have at least 51% low to moderate income population. We can definitely do a survey in some cases if census data does not reflect that. And a 10% local match is required for this one. For the T-Mobile grant, there is no match required. I'm happy to take any questions now, or as stated previously, you're welcome to email me with any.
Hey, Susie, I got a question.
Hi, go ahead, Rod.
Hey, does this CBDG grant, is it relative to cities above 50 grand?
So the Okra planning grants would not be eligible for entitlement communities. So
Okay.
an entitlement community, those would be, Goshen, Elkhart, Mishawaka, South Bend.
Got it.
So this is for those rural areas that are not entitlement communities
All right,
for
thanks.
the Okra planning grants.
Thanks, James. I just wanted to be sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Community crossings?
So continuing on with the grant updates, if you have not heard, I guess coming to you with breaking news, but NDOT's Community Crossings Matching Grant Program, traditionally, it's open now, but it'll close end of July, but they have extended the deadline, so it'll now be closing August 31st. So hopefully everyone's familiar with this project or this program, but traditionally helps communities improve their pavement conditions. So again, this grant is open and will be closing August 31st. It's never too early to start. So if you or your staff need assistance with this application this round, please feel free to reach out. But again, August 31st is a new deadline.
And tangentially on the subject, Elkhart County just got back some bids for our paving program at 45% higher than budgeted. So everybody brace yourself, I guess, if you don't have the same experience yet.
All right, the next item, we mentioned earlier the IJA, the bill, the bipartisan infrastructure law. We've talked about this in previous months. Not only did that program reauthorize the transportation program, but it also created a lot of new grant programs. So MAP 21 and the FAST Act, the previous transportation bills, slimmed down the number of overall programs that existed, right? It tried to reduce the number of buckets that money was in. IJA bill reopened and created a whole bunch of new programs. So that's exciting, but it's also very challenging to make sure that we're all keeping pace. And I think every month there's at least 2 or 3 new discretionary grant programs that are coming out. So many of you may feel inundated with information about new grant programs. If you have any questions, we are trying to stay abreast of all of those transportation programs. And so, right now you have the Safe Streets for All program that's out, Reconnecting Communities pilot program, the bridge program, the railroad elimination program, and I'm probably forgetting two off the top of my head, right? So there's a lot of programs that are flying out fast, because one of the things that the infrastructure bill did is it created a large number of nationally competitive grant programs. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that is what is the case. One of those is the Safe Streets and Roads for All, the SS for A grant. This program has two major tracks, is what I would say. The first is that you have to have a plan. And then if you have a plan, you would be eligible for implementation funds. So a lot of people have asked, do we need to do our own plan? Because all of you are eligible applicants and all of you are eligible to apply to do a plan. I will tell you that MACOG is planning to apply to do a regional application. So if we are selected and are successful, you will not need an individual plan to be eligible for those implementation funds. Okay. So, competitively, it looks better if they encourage regional participation. They have kind of signaled that that's what they would like to invest in. Also, it would save your all's staff time from having to, over the next 12 months, shepherd through a Safe Streets and Roads for All local community plan. And so we do plan on applying as a regional application. So I'm happy to answer any questions around that, but I wanted to make sure that you all know that as you have questions from your staffs or from folks in the region, that is something that we are planning to do. That application is due in September. Councilman.
So what do you want from us to make this? It sounds like you're going to do the lion's share of the work, but what can we contribute to help get this?
We're wading through the NOFO now to make sure that we know all of the elements that are going to be needed. And there will be things that will probably come back to the board in August for, say, a resolution of endorsement of a regional plan application, right? And so then we'll ask for that approval. We also may ask for separate letters of support, depending on if those are or aren't needed. We also may reach out to our congressional delegations to see if letters of support are needed as well. We're also trying to figure out exactly how much we'll be applying for, and there is a match component that's required. We'll figure that out, though.
If we write a better letter than somebody else, we'll get more money.
I don't know that that's the way that it works, but I appreciate your candor.
And it sounds like we do not need to move forward with a plan. You're fairly confident that the regional plan will be better and accepted.
I have a feeling that the regional plan will be more competitive.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions?
That's the part that we're trying to figure out right now. There is a threshold that the regions can apply for and those kind of things. And so we're trying to make sure we're talking to some peers that have done similar plans, but maybe not to the same extent, to try and get pricing and trying to get some independent cost estimates of what we think it's going to cost. So the overall program has $5 billion in it across the next 6 years. That's for both plans and implementation. Everything that we've heard from folks on the national level seem to indicate that this first round, they really don't plan to award any funds for implementation. While some may feel like they have a eligible plan that meets the criteria, it sounds like the folks on the national level believe that will be very few and far between, and that the overwhelming majority of awards will be around plans.
And I think also it says that no more than 15% of the funds can be given to a single state, so that does help. But the NOFO explicitly states that it encourages regional applications, so we do think we have a better shot if MACOG applies for it rather than a single community.
Well, yeah, and then the other aspect that we haven't gotten into with that is the blanket coverage that it provides, right? So if, for example, Milford or Syracuse or Bristol or Culver end up having a project that might be a good fit for this program, if we have a regional plan, then they're theoretically eligible for implementation. Whereas if we don't do a regional plan and say each of the cities do their own plan, then all of a sudden, some communities may be left behind on that program and may not be eligible for it until they then go through that process of doing a plan. And is that too much of a lift for some of our smaller communities? So.
Go ahead and move on to our last grant update. So you'll recall that our transportation department is currently, was holding a call for projects, and it closed June 29th. So we in total received 14 new project applications, totaling about $86 million. And those projects ranged anywhere from road reconstructions to trail projects to EV charging infrastructure. And then we also received 8 additional funding requests for existing projects in our TIP. So we'll be spending this month of July reviewing those applications and seeing how different projects fit within our existing budget. And then hopefully at the August policy board, we'll be coming to you with project recommendations, and after that, hopefully can move forward with programming some projects and filling out our budget. So this month, we're reviewing those applications that we received, and hopefully we'll have recommendations to you guys next month.
Yeah, and I guess just to put it lightly, the 14 new projects at 86 million exceeded essentially funding that we had available.
We do not have $86 million, yes.
Yes. So, it will be competitive. As always, we usually try and do our additional funds before we do new projects. But we do want to thank everybody for participating in the call for projects. We held it an entire quarter earlier than we normally do because with the infrastructure bill, the urban area funding went up about 30%. And so we are that went up last year for fiscal 22, which we were in the middle of when it happened. And so we mobilized a lot of our 23 preliminary engineering or right-of-way costs. And so we pulled those forward and accelerated those. But that meant that now we've kind of created a void in 23 where we need to fill in some things. And so we decided to hold this call earlier so that we could easily have the opportunity, if we do any new projects, to try and fund some of those preliminary engineerings in this fiscal year. So thank you, and we look forward to selecting some good projects with y'all.
Thank you.
Good morning. So every 4 years, we are responsible for updating our long-range transportation plan, the Michiana on the Move. And so the policy board adopted and approved our last plan in fall of 2019, which doesn't seem that long ago, but we are now going to be starting off the year-long process of updating this plan to 2050. So for those of you that might not be familiar with a long-range transportation plan, it essentially sets a blueprint for how we're going to be investing in transportation over the 20+ years. And so our plan is to hold our kind of kickoff meetings with each county and stakeholders and communities with those in August to talk about growth, land use changes, maybe some potential different scenarios that we'd like to review and how those might impact transportation projects in the future. And then as another large part of the planning process will be public engagement. So we're planning to come out with some kind of different phases that we're preparing surveys and going to events and items like that. So we're hoping to partner with your staff as well as other organizations so that we can kind of capture general public feedback on this plan as well. So just wanted to make you aware that we're starting that process, and you'll likely be hearing a lot about it over the next year or so. Our plan is to have a draft of the plan early fall of next year. Thank you.
Good morning. MACOG is very happy to announce that we received the AmeriCorps Award. So we will have an AmeriCorps program for 2022 through 2023. And we are currently looking for service sites for these AmeriCorps members to serve at. We have an application on our website, and it is due July 18th. Does anybody have questions?
And just to provide some extra context, I know we've talked about it over the last few months, but just to make sure folks are aware, the AmeriCorps program that MACOG is intending to host will essentially provide members to different service sites. And so a service site may be a municipality or it may be a nonprofit. The members will our priority is to have them focus on items related to sustainability as well as resiliency from, say, our recent resiliency plan that we adopted. And so that's what we're trying to prioritize is those two topics. We will be able to have up to 15 members. So if you have city, county, municipal projects that are focused on sustainability or focused on resiliency, and you're going, it would be really great if we had extra capacity, right? If we had the ability to have an extra person working on something. For the rough estimated costs of about $11,000, you would be able to, if we're hoping that more than 15 service sites apply, right? Like we're hoping that it'll be fairly competitive, but if you end up hosting a member, you would be able to have that person working with your organization for the cost of about $11,000 because of the grant program. And so there are a number of communities that are interested in moving some of their different projects forwards or assisting with different departments. We understand that from a municipal nonprofit perspective, there are a ton of needs for capacity. And so if your need for capacity is on code enforcement, that's not going to be the right fit for this program. It's typically projects and programming around sustainability and resiliency. So those are kind of the two major items that we had intended to focus on. So one, to provide that context for you. We've talked to many of your departments or organizations, but if you do have an interest, please see, Amber afterwards, and happy to talk through things with you.
Thank you.
Great. Our last update we have is on the Connect Transit Plan. So again, we've been talking about this for several months. Right now, building upon our last meeting, we are in public engagement time where we're talking about the different concepts that were developed on our public transit systems, trying to achieve different goals and trying to get a good feedback from the public on which concept they would prefer. So right now we've been had a public survey online over the last month. It's continuing through this month. And starting this week, actually today, and next week, we're going to have 4 open houses. So today we're in Goshen, 4 to 6 in downtown Goshen. And tomorrow we're in South Bend at the library downtown here, 4 to 6 as well. And then next Tuesday, we're in Mishawaka at the downtown library. And in Elkhart, we'll be at the Pierre Moran Pavilion on Wednesday next week. And so you definitely encourage you to come out to those open houses to talk to us about these concepts, give us input on that. Also, please encourage other people in your communities to come out and join us there as well. And hopefully we can have a good turnout on those events. And also encourage everyone to visit our website, which is connecttransitplan.com. They can see a website or a survey on there, as well as some reports and information about those concepts as well. Do have any questions about kind of where we're at in this process or these upcoming events. Great,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any privilege of the floor? How about public comments?
I'm not aware of any public comments sent in advance or online, and it doesn't appear that there's any public comment in person.
Great, thank you. I might entertain a motion to adjourn then.
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.